Hi guys, as promised, I'm here on a Friday afternoon and I wanted to get back to basics with today's live broadcast and just, I think sometimes I take it for granted that people understand the concepts that we use at Fit Body Fusion and myself as a coach in particular, the basic concepts of flexible nutrition, or also called IIFYM, or flexible dieting. And then I'm going to talk about that a little bit, and then I'm going to break it down into some of the components of the techniques that we're using, and then just kind of talk about a few different things. There's not really a one-size-fits-all in regards to in regards to the way we do our programs, and just in regards to how your body works. And sometimes I get questions, I've been getting a lot of questions lately, and people want a definitive answer without me knowing, your background and, how your body functions and everything else. It's real difficult to give some of these definitive answers, but I want to kind of give you a general idea of different things that I see, and hopefully you'll identify with some of the things that I talk about. As far as dieting in general, let's just talk dieting in general. Most diets are really designed to basically cut calories. So most of them are glorified ways of tricking you into eating less calories, right? So creating a calorie deficit. So you can create a calorie deficit either through burning calories or through cutting the foods that you're intaking. And so in a lot of cases, you're doing these weird drastic measures, maybe cutting out, all of a certain type of food, or, cutting all your sugar or whatever. But the idea is, at the end of the day, the goal is to have you reduce your calories and lose weight. The problem with this is that even if you lose weight on a diet, are you able to keep the weight off? Or does it come right back on as soon as you start eating those things again that you had cut out? I mean, are these things you're going to keep out of your diet for the rest of your life? So at the end of the day, what we really need is we need something that is sustainable. We need to learn new habits. We need to learn how to eat properly for our body. And in addition to that, we need to make sure that we're not damaging our metabolisms, or we're not causing adaptation. So, over dieting for too long, creating too much of a calorie deficit to where you can eat so little that, as soon as you start eating again, you're going to gain the weight right back. So it does us no good. So all these, get skinny quick kind of things, or get fit quick kind of things, or, people that come to me and they want to, do a competition, so I mean, this applies whether it's just, you doing fitness for yourself, or whether you're wanting to compete. Somebody comes to me and says, hey, I want to do a show in 3 months, and they've got 30 pounds to lose. These are the kinds of things that we need to take a step back, because it's great. You step on that stage in, 12 weeks, and even if you look great, what's going to happen that next day? Are you going to be able to maintain that? Certainly if you were eating tilapia and asparagus, 5 times a day, probably not. You're gonna go off the rails. So let's talk about our solution to that problem. The flexible nutrition concept is basically you're given a certain budget of macronutrients, and you fill that with the foods that you want. A lot of the people who are skeptical of this type of program think that everybody who's going to be given the choice to pick their own foods is just going to eat a bunch of garbage all day. But what you'll find is that very quickly, if you start doing this, you're going to choose healthier, more nutritious, more whole foods, because they're more filling, they're more satiating, they feel good. So you start to learn what feels good for your body. And again, that is not a one-size-fits-all. I mean, I have a lot of people I work with who have digestive issues, and they can't even eat vegetables. I mean, so, I know that sounds like, but I do. I literally have a couple of people that can't eat vegetables. So obviously they have to take some supplements to deal with that, because vegetables are good for you. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not, but I'm saying from a digestive standpoint, because of some of the issues they have going on. So that's going to mean something different for everyone. But at the end of the day, my rule is that you want to have about 80% whole, healthy, nutritious types of foods, and 20% of fun foods. foods that you really enjoy and you feel like, you're being bad, you know what I mean? But it's not being bad anymore, right? It's just part of what you do. I always talk about that, people laugh at me when I'm checking out at the grocery store because I have a basket full of ice cream bars, because I have an ice cream bar every night. That's something I enjoy and it helps keep me on track. I look forward to it, and so I don't feel like I need to, be looking for something all day, because I really enjoy my treat at the end of the night. So, the idea behind this program, first and foremost, just the flexibility, is to teach you how to make the proper choices for your body. If I hand you, a diet, here, eat this at this time, eat this at this time, you're not learning anything. And I find that there are those people that don't want to put the time and energy into, really making sure that their meal plans add up and their macros, they just do it for me. And the problem is that if I do it for you, you're not learning anything. You're not going to learn how to order food when you go out to eat, or how to handle social situations, or how to handle when you're traveling, anything out of the ordinary. You have to learn how to handle those situations, because we're not looking just for the immediate quick fix of whatever it is, weight loss or show prep or whatever. We're looking to have a lifelong enjoyment of being in the body that you want to be in, that you enjoy being in, right? At the end of the day, that's really everything. I mean, if you're a competitor and you get a trophy, great. I can't tell you how many people come to me that won their shows, or did really well and got a trophy, and are dealing with problems with their metabolisms, problems with binging, problems with all this stuff. And every single person I say, hey, if you had a chance to do it all again, and you would have had to wait an extra 6 months to take the weight off slower, to do it in a better, healthier way, would you? There's not one person that hasn't said, yeah, I would have taken the time and done it right, because they'd still be sitting in the body that they love, right? And they know that, and now maybe it takes them 6 months, maybe a year to rebuild that metabolism. So anyway, I'm kind of getting sidetracked a little bit, but again, the idea of the flexibility is very, very important for you to learn what foods work best for your body, for you to feel like you have the freedom, not feel like you're in a box, not have everybody around you going, oh, you can't have this, oh yeah, I can have it. I'm just, I've already got my meals planned for the day, and I'm kind of happy with what I got. It puts the power back in your court. So these are many, many reasons why, we love this flexible approach. It does require some effort. It does require some pre-planning, especially when you're getting started, because you may not know what things are going to fit and what adds up properly. So as you're learning, it'll get easier and easier, and then you can fly by the seat of your pants, and eventually the goal is to get to a place where you can eat intuitively. So I don't even track most days, but I know what things fit, what my macronutrients need to look like, what my foods need to look like, and what they need to add up to at the end of the day. So that's the ultimate goal. So I want to kind of break down. So we talked about the flexible dieting. IIFYM stands for if it fits your macros. So in other words, if you have your macros or your carbs, your fat, your protein. So if you have a certain budget or allotment of carbs, fat, and protein, if it fits in that, you get to eat it. There are some breakdowns within that. It's a good idea to spread your protein out evenly. There are some additional details within how you break them out, but at the end of the day, if you're just getting started, if they fit for the day, that's good. Number 2 in priority, start making sure that protein is spread out evenly. There's a lot of online programs now that help you figure out your macros. Unfortunately, the one-size-fits-all approach doesn't necessarily work. Fit Body Fusion does have, if you're just trying to do it on your own, we do have a university course that you can take, which is all videos, and it walks you through the process of creating your own macros, and through the reverse dieting process. So if that's something you're interested in doing on your own, you can go to fitbody.com and look at the FitQ program. Otherwise it is helpful to have somebody to work with you as you're learning and as you're getting started. I have a little bit different philosophy when I'm starting someone out. We're going to talk about reverse dieting now. So typically I like to start people in a reverse dieting sort of scenario, unless they've come to me and they've already reverse dieted and we're doing a cut for a show or something like that. But even then, I find I really like to, it helps me figure out where a person's metabolism is. And you know what, we're all different. We are all different. I mean, I see some people with mind-blowing metabolisms. I mean, I have, many women that I've been working with for many years who, are 115, 120 pounds of muscle, small women, that are eating over 2,000 calories a day, easy, and maintaining that. But not everybody can get there. And why? Well, there's 3 factors that I'm going to talk about. One is just simply your genetics. I mean, we are all different. We all have a different set of situations, a different set of challenges in our own bodies. So that's one piece, right? That's the piece we can't control. The second is, what have you done up until this point? So have you been yo-yo dieting? Have you been competing? Have you been doing a lot of super restrictive, kinds of, eating and or exercise? That's going to affect your metabolism too. So when somebody comes to me and they've already been doing a lot of that, most of the time I know we're going to need to do a pretty decent reverse diet. But then, okay, we go back to the genetic factors. Sometimes people bounce right back from that. It's one of the things that worries me about social media, because a lot of times you see women on social media like doing show after show after show, and they're just bouncing back and they're doing these ridiculous diets and things that for a lot of other people would completely crater their metabolisms, but they get away with it. That's them. That's their genetic makeup. So you have to understand, we're all different. We had one of our coaches, huge, male athlete, who a lot of times people go, oh, I want to look like you. What is on your diet? I want to eat your diet. Well, if they would have gone and eaten his diet, they'd weigh 300 pounds, but he could eat that, right? So we're all different. So you have to be really careful just picking up something you see somebody doing on social media and thinking that it translates and it applies to you. So I just want to preface it with saying that. So whenever I start somebody out with a reverse diet, one of the things I'm asking them a lot about is, what's their background? How much dieting have they been doing? How much are they eating? Are they able to maintain on that amount? Or are they losing weight on that amount? Are they gaining weight on that amount? Kind of getting a gauge for where their metabolism is. So, that's going to be their genetic. That's going to be, what they've been eating. And then the third piece is obviously, how consistent are you going to be? Unfortunately, if you sign up for a program or you start doing your macros and you're not being honest with yourself, or you're not being honest with your coach, you're not going to go anywhere. So that's the third piece, and so there is that mental, emotional factor. You really want to be ready to commit to the process and really do a good job. Otherwise, what's the purpose? So taking all of those things into account, if you're doing this for yourself, you're going to want to figure out where's your basal metabolic rate. If I have somebody who comes to me, they're already eating below their basal metabolic rate and they're maintaining, we have some work to do, right? Because if I need to create a calorie deficit, so 3,500 calories burns a pound of fat, right? And so if you're eating 1,200 calories and your basal metabolic rate should be 1,400 calories and you're maintaining at 1,200, how are we ever going to get that deficit enough to be able to have you lose the weight? And I'll tell you how some coaches do it, and this is a nightmare to me. Some coaches will just give you 2 hours cardio a day, cut you to 1,000 calories, maybe less. They'll get that deficit. Guys, this is not worth it. Trust me. Take the time, build that metabolism first. I'm a little conservative. I do like to see the people that I work with. First of all, to me, if I lose your mental, emotional focus, if you are so miserable with the body that you're in, and this is part of you having to work on that yourself too, though. But I don't want to see somebody who already feels uncomfortable gaining a lot of weight. And so you will see a lot of coaches that do that use the IIFYM approach. They'll do a reverse diet very quickly. And I haven't finished telling you what a reverse diet is. Basically, what a reverse diet is we're defining where we're going to start. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about that. And then we're slowly raising the calories primarily from carbs and fats to teach the body that it has just enough of a surplus so that the metabolism continues to increase and increase. Kind of the opposite of what you did when you dieted and you taught your body to use less calories. Now we're teaching it to use more calories. so that we can get those calories up to a level to then where it's easier to cut. We can carb cycle and do some other things that I'll talk about a little bit later on. So kind of going back to how do I set those initial macronutrients and how do I figure out about the calories I want to put someone at. First of all, I'm looking at their basal metabolic rate. I'm listening to what their history is. If I have somebody who, like I said, their basal metabolic rate should be around 1400, but they're cruising at 1200, they're not losing weight, and on top of it, maybe they're doing 5 cardio sessions of 30 minutes a week, we know we have work to do, because first of all, we need to get the cardio down, get the food up, so that we can get the body to the point where it's burning the amount it should be, maybe more, if we can push it up there. And then we're easily able to get, lean, but lean at a point where you're still eating enough. It's something that you can sustain and maintain. So first and foremost, the goal is to get that metabolism into a healthy place, if it's not already there. Every once in a while, most of the people that come to me, we have work to do, and that's kind of why they come to me, but every once in a while I do get somebody who has a rocket metabolism and they're just ready to go. And even in that case, it's great, especially if we need to build muscle. Building muscle during a reverse dieting phase is ideal. Like I said, I tend to start people a little bit lower than a lot of coaches do, because I like to, especially if the person's feeling or needs to drop some weight. This allows them to start off the bat dropping weight as we're bumping up. And I have people who continue to lose weight through a reverse diet. I've had people lose, I had one person lose 50 pounds, and all I did is continue to raise her the whole time. And she ate fast food, she did, not that I'm saying I'm a big proponent of fast food, but I'm saying it's not like she was eating crazy clean, but that's not everyone. Some people just maintain the same weight as you're bumping up. But I like to go slow enough to where people are not gaining weight. Unless they're somebody who needs to gain weight, maybe they're underweight or they're really looking to put on muscle. Obviously, there's some exceptions to this rule. But for the most part, most of the time when people come in, they're really looking to lose some weight. And so, in order to be a little bit more patient during the reverse dieting phase, I find that it helps if they're not gaining more weight. And my philosophy is that if I take a little bit longer to build that metabolism, I'm going to need less time in the cutting phase, because you're already going to weigh the same or less than when we started. Whereas if I rush that reverse dieting phase, you're going to gain a bunch of weight, and then the cutting phase is going to need to be longer, because now I need to cut a lot more off of you. So to me, I'd rather take more time on the reverse diet, really do it nice, slow, right, and then go into the cut with you at a high level of calories, at a decent level of body fat, and feeling really good. And you'll see a lot of the people that are posting on our team page that they're going, hey, I'm going into my prep, and you'll see them and you'll be like, you're just starting your prep, and you look like that. They look like they could almost step on stage. Now, that's not everybody. Like I said, everyone is so different. So typically when we're reverse dieting, we're starting at a certain level of carbs, fat, and protein. We're slowly raising mostly the carbs and fat. We may be playing with the protein kind of based on where that person's body fat or overall weight is going. And also in terms of their satiation, because protein does tend to be more satiating. So if I have somebody who's having trouble with binging, or who is just really hungry all the time, I might give them a bit more protein than somebody who is having a hard time finishing all their food. I do have those people who are at 1,100-1,200 calories and they're having a hard time finishing their food. And a lot of times that's because the metabolism is tanked. But as that metabolism starts to speed up, they may be getting hungrier, and then I might adjust the protein. So typically protein is going to be about 1 gram per pound of body weight, plus or minus, based on how hungry that person is. And also based on how they've been eating in the past. So one of the things you want to be careful of, and a lot of times when you go to these macro calculators online and you're saying, okay, I'm starting a reverse diet, where should my macros be? If you've been eating, at a keto level of carbs, 40, 50 grams of carbs, and you go and do this calculator and it tells you, oh no, you need to be eating 100, 120. I don't recommend that you jump up to where you should be. You need to reverse out of where you currently are. So if you're under eating already, you don't want to go with a general macronutrient profile that comes out of some calculator somewhere, because you're going to gain a bunch of weight right off the bat and then be frustrated and not know where you are. Same thing goes with protein. If I'm telling you should have a gram per pound of body weight, I had a client today, she's been eating like 30-40 grams a day. Well, I don't want to jump her up from 30-40 grams to 140, where she should be. I want to bring that up slowly because the digestion, is sluggish and things like that. So that's reverse dieting in a nutshell. I mean, there's so much more to this, and that's one of the reasons why, for me, I do have a conversation with somebody on the front end to really kind of get to know where they are, what's happening with their body. And then really the first 2 to 4 weeks I'm with them, I'm still figuring out both how their body's responding to the macronutrients so that I can tweak that, but also, how their mindset works, where they are emotionally, because, we need to be in this for the long haul, and you're not going to be in it for the long haul if you're frustrated and you give up. So there's the mental emotional piece of it too. This is not a quick fix. This is not a diet. This is not a 90-day challenge. This is about, creating the conditions where you can maintain your ideal fitness level, your ideal level of body fat, muscle mass, all of that kind of thing. But it takes time and effort to get there. You have to be willing to go through the steps. So we talked about step 1 is doing your reverse diet. A lot of people will say, well, how long is my reverse diet? Well, obviously, based on everything I've said so far, that's going to depend a lot. I mean, I might have somebody who comes in with me and we don't need to reverse diet at all. I mean, maybe they're eating at the right level. It's easy to cut them. It's fine. I might have someone else come in and, they've really done a doozy on their metabolism, and it might take us 6 months to a year. It's going to depend. To give you kind of an idea of numbers to help you figure out what does that mean for me, if you go and calculate your basal metabolic rate, which is your complete resting metabolic rate, obviously that's not going to be yours. It's going to be a generalized one based on an algorithm, but it's taking into account your height, your weight, your age. If you're using a DEXA scan or some sort of body fat machine, it's also going to take into account your muscle mass, which does bring another level of accuracy as to where that basal metabolic rate should be. Once you calculate that, for me, when I'm reversing someone, I like to see bare bones minimum us get at least to 600 calories above that stated basal metabolic rate. That's kind of the bare bones. Ideally, I would really prefer to see people about 800 to 1,000 calories above their basal metabolic rate. So kind of going back to that 1,400 calories, which is about what my basal metabolic rate is, somewhere, maybe a little bit more than that. But just for ease of numbers, right? So that would mean I would need to have reverse up to at least 2,000 calories to be 600 above, and ideally, what would that be? 6, 7, 8, so that'd be 2,200 to 2,400 calories would be more the ideal range that I'd like to see a client at before we start the cutting phase. What's really interesting is I do have some people that I'll reverse them, and we do it nice and slow and controlled, and they get to a level. I just saw Corinne, she just popped on, and I just reposted her picture. If you look on our Instagram, she's #1 on there. We just started her prep, and we didn't even stop reverse dieting her because she's gotten so lean in the process, and she's eating well over 2,000 calories. So that's a good example. So there are those people that continue to drop throughout the reverse. I mean, I've had people come to me and go, I love my body, I don't even need a cut. So sometimes the reverse diet is enough, especially if your person's not competing. If we get to the point of the reverse and we still need to drop some body fat because we're competing, or we just need to get leaner, maybe we started out with a lot more body fat than we could have dropped on that period, then we'll go into the next phase, which tends to be a carb cycling phase. I do want to say, and I couldn't sleep last night because I'm thinking all the things I wanted to mention on here, but at the same time, I don't want it to be like information overload. Not everybody does well on a traditional reverse diet. And when I say a traditional reverse diet, typically your carbs, fat, and protein are the same for the entire week, or some coaches only do check-ins every 2 weeks. I do them every week. But then they're raised periodically, but there's no cycling of the macronutrients. Not everyone does very well with that, especially if I have somebody who's become really carb sensitive because of over dieting, or if they're somebody who has PCOS or some other kind of condition that causes insulin sensitivity. or carbs are an issue, sometimes I will find that I can reverse diet them in a carb cycling type of program. So they'll have some lower carb days, and on the lower carb days, their proteins and fats will be higher. The calories will be somewhere close, but then they'll have one or two high days, kind of depending on the person, where we try to pop up that metabolism. So some people do better. Some people do better because, like I said, of the carb sensitivity, doing it that way, and some people do better doing it that way simply for the fact that carbs can tend to make you really hungry. And if I find somebody is really having a hard time with binging and that kind of thing, sometimes they do better with a carb cycling type of program, just because they're not as hungry every day. It just really depends on the person. It's so unique to the person, and that's why I just had somebody send me a private message asking me about binging and how to. When I'm working with someone who's having a binging issue, we try a lot of different things, because sometimes it's a hormonal imbalance, sometimes it has to do with their environment, sometimes it has to do with habits, sometimes it has to do with their actual macronutrients. Maybe we need to shift to a little bit more protein and fats and a little bit less carbs while we're getting that under control. So there isn't a one size fits all, right? There's different situations for different people. So you have to be a little bit open to what that is. And that's where having coaching is really helpful. But like I said, you can experiment it. And when you are getting coached, whether you're doing this on your own or getting your coached, you should start really noticing, how do different things affect me? When I have my clients check in, they let me know what's their hunger, how they're sleeping, what's their stress levels. There's a lot of things that are affecting that weigh-in. So I track all those things because it helps me get to know what's working and what's not working for that person, so we can kind of shift things around and customize them based on what their needs are. Sometimes it's a matter of supplements. That there are certain supplements that will help. Either it's to help balance the hormones, to help deal with cravings, things like that. Help deal with digestive issues. A lot of times when people are coming out of these yo-yo diets or over dieting, the digestion isn't working like it should. So anyway, there's a lot of tools in the toolbox that can be used, but I'm going to stick with just kind of going through these different methodologies. So we talked first about the reverse dieting. Now we've gotten the metabolism up. We're at least 600 calories above basal metabolic rate, and we want to start being more aggressive with our fat loss. Maybe we've lost fat the whole time, maybe we've maintained the whole time. But either way, we want to now get a bit more aggressive with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to fluctuate our carbs. So we're going to have, like I said, we're going to have some lower carb days that have higher protein and fats, and then some higher carb days to, pop up that metabolism, so that when you're going back into lower carb days, your body's still burning. So the idea is to kind of trick your body into thinking, okay, I've got all this, extra energy, which is what carbs are, is the most readily available energy your body can have. So we trick the body into thinking, okay, I got plenty of carbs, and then it's back down and it's still burning. So that's the carb cycling phase. People say, how long do you do the carb cycling phase? Well, it depends on what your goals are. I mean, if you've got 5 pounds to lose, you're probably not going to need a carb cycle very long. If you've got 20 pounds to lose, you're going to carb cycle for longer. So even within that, some people, it takes them longer to lose weight. Even if the reverse, and sometimes, especially if the reverse went really well, sometimes the carb cycling can take a little bit more time. The reason for that is that if you have if your metabolism adapts very easily, so in other words, as I'm bumping you up, your metabolism's just adapting as we go up, and I can keep going up. Well, when I start cutting, sometimes it adapts just as quickly. So, we have to be careful of that too, where some people it takes them longer to get the metabolism up during the reverse diet, but then I barely have to cut them and they start losing and losing and losing. So there's pros and cons to both, but at the end of the day, your body's your body. You don't get to pick. So you go with what you got. So how long you need a carb cycle is completely dependent upon A, how quickly does your body adapt as you're coming back down, and B, what is your goal? How lean do you need to get, and where are you now? For some people it could be really quick. For some people it could take longer. For some people they may need to go back and forth, because they may only be able to get, say I have somebody who's got 80 pounds to lose, and their first carb cycle we get them down 40 pounds, but we start to plateau as we get closer and closer to that basal metabolic rate. Well, rather than dropping below the basal metabolic rate, we don't want to do that. We would rather go back into the reverse diet, bring those calories back up again, and then as you're coming back up, you still have those 40 pounds are gone, right? And then once the calories are back up, you start whittling back to get rid of the rest of the weight. And then once the weight is off, you know, whether it's because whether you're taking it off because you're doing a show or just because you want to be at a certain level of body fat, you still need to, very important, reverse back out. In the competition world, I hear a lot of coaches, you know, use reverse dieting between shows or after shows. I believe that it's just as important to do it before you cut the very first time than it is between shows. It's the same idea. You might not need to do it as long, it may not be as intense, maybe longer. It just depends on the person's body. But coming out of a show or coming out of a weight loss phase, you absolutely want to jump right on that reverse diet. There shouldn't be like, oh, my diet is done on Monday, so on Tuesday I'm going to go and eat an entire pizza and, you know, whatever. You know, eat a huge, you know, banana split. This is not the right way to think about it. And I know, depending on how hard you cut and how fast you lost weight and all of that kind of stuff, it sometimes can be challenging. But anybody who's done this will tell you how worth it is. You know, to be able to be one of those people who is an off-season competitor and looks very similar to the way they look on stage versus, you know, somebody who feels like they want to be, you know, they want to isolate themselves in their off season because they're embarrassed because they gained so much weight. You know, so not only is that hard on your mental state, not only does it limit what you can do in terms of sponsorships and other kinds of things, but it also is doing a doozy on your metabolism. And the next time you try to cut all that weight that you gained off, it's going to be 10 times harder than it was the first time. So this is where that reverse diet is so important. And at the end of the day, isn't that what we're looking for? We're looking to not just lose the weight, to not just have that weight off, but to actually keep the weight off, which is where that after weight loss reverse diet comes into play. The nice thing is, if you do get coaching to go through this process, you've already done a reverse diet, so you know how to do it. So I mean, I have some people that, you know, stay with me in off season and on season because they like that accountability and they like, you know, me guiding them through. And then I have those people that have worked with me for a while. We do their reverse, we put them on stage, they do their next reverse, and then when they're ready to get back on stage, we do a prep, and then they go back and do their own reverse. You know, it kind of depends on the person, you know, in terms of, you know, how much contact they like and, you know, all of that. You know, but, you know, at the end of the day, you want to have the knowledge of how to do it yourself. You know, whether or not you have somebody, whether a trainer, a coach, or whatever, helping to provide some accountability, it's really important to know why you're doing what you're doing. I love the people that ask me questions, and I know they go, oh, I'm sorry for annoying you. I'm like, no, ask me. If you want to know why I'm adjusting you the way that I am, ask me so that you can learn more and understand more. So I really encourage you guys to do that. If you're working with a coach, you want to be with somebody you can ask the questions to and that you can learn. You want to be able to, at some point, be on your own and do this, you know, do this yourself. So, so I talked a little bit about carb cycling. You know, I find that, you know, everyone's body responds different, and some people respond better to reversing, some people respond better to carb cycling, some people respond better to reversing a carb cycle, which is kind of that other third component. I did say that I would talk a little bit about keto because I do get a lot of questions about keto. And I do use keto in some cases, so I am not an anti-keto person, although I will tell you that I find that it's not best for most people. It's not a sustainable lifestyle for most people. So there are some people that love it, works perfect for their lifestyle, it's great, awesome, wonderful, no problem. But for most people, it's just very limiting in terms of the foods, and for some people they just never kind of get over that feeling of fogginess and low energy. You should get over it like in the first 3 weeks or so, but some people don't. So it is very unique to the individual. Keto is wonderful for people who have any kind of brain issues like seizure disorders or who have had any kind of, you know, brain injuries or things like that. Because the brain can use the ketones very easily. So that's one of the areas that it's really great. It's not as great in the bodybuilding world for the most part, but like I said, we're all unique individuals. Usually when I use it, it tends to be in the last, when I'm pulling that last little bit off of somebody. If we're having a hard time, we're plateauing, and we're really close to a show, say we're like 4 to 6 weeks out from a show, and we're wanting to just kind of crank those screws a little bit, or if I have somebody who's tending to hold a lot of water, because it does tend to push water out of you, I'll use it for that short time. So sometimes you'll see my clients, oh, I'm on keto, and everybody thinks, oh, everybody needs to be on keto. No, that's really specific to that person. There's a reason I have that person doing it. It's kind of like, for most people, I would not have them do fasted cardio, but I do have some clients where I'm actually actively trying to bring their level of muscularity down, and so I will, and there's other reasons to do the fasted cardio. It does help with people who are binging. It does help to balance out those hormones a little bit. So sometimes you're using certain tools in certain situations. So I might say, as a rule, I don't recommend fasted cardio, but there are situations where it makes sense. So that's where it's really hard to give real generic advice, when people do ask questions. And I encourage you to ask me questions, and I'm so happy to, connect with each and every one of you that does reach out to me, and I really appreciate it. It means a lot. I mean, I've got some messages that really touch my heart, especially with my last podcast, or my Facebook Live, if you didn't hear it, where I told my story and kind of some of my body image issues and binging issues and things like that. And so I've got some really beautiful messages, and I appreciate them so much. And I always feel bad if somebody asks me a question and I can't give them a direct, definitive this. But that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this talk, to just kind of bring up different situations and explain why I might use different methodologies with different people. I'm always open to learn. There's so much more information coming out now. There's so many more studies being done on not just obesity or on geriatrics, but also on general fit people, or people that are looking to just generally be fit, not necessarily because they are obese or one of these other issues. So it's a really exciting time to be involved, but it's also disheartening, because I do still get so many people, especially people that have been in the competition world, that come to me, and just some of the things I hear that coaches do, both in terms of what they're assigning, too little food, too much cardio, trying to cut too fast, but also just in terms of how people are treated and shamed and made to feel belittled or less than, or those kinds of things. I feel like what's really important is that we're lifting each other. I mean, that's to me what this whole thing is about, is us helping to create more health, create more longevity, create more beauty in the world. And that doesn't mean we all need to look the same. It just means beauty comes from within. Beauty comes from, I was in yoga, and I know I'm totally diverting, but I was in yoga one of the days this week, and I kind of took a moment, and I was looking around the room, and there's all different shapes and sizes and ages, and men and women, and just all this kind of thing. And I just had this moment of just appreciating the beauty in each and every person as they were making these beautiful shapes with their body and doing yoga. And it wasn't because anybody was perfect or anybody was ready to step on stage or whatever you consider perfect, because perfect is different for everybody, right? It was just like a lot of just people who were looking within, and that were stretching themselves. And anyway, sorry, I divert a little bit. I'll get back to the subject. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, so I talked a little bit about the reverse dieting, when to use it, how far do you need to go. The carb cycling, like I said, very, very different for each person. Sometimes it's a matter of playing around with what works for that person. And then in some cases, keto for either a period of time to get some weight off, or for good. It kind of depends on the person. The one other thing I did want to mention too, and I talked about that, I really do, I like to reverse everybody to start with, and get everybody to that good metabolic place. I mentioned a little bit that you have to take into account the mental and emotional aspects as well. And there are times that I will do like a little mini cut even before I get to that 600 calorie minimum, because if I feel like somebody is just struggling so much that they just need to feel, you know, that they are moving towards their goal before they can move forward, sometimes I will cut them, do like a little mini cut early, carb cycle, and get them a little bit lower before we can continue. But this is where I feel like you have to be fluid in your approach. You know, both as a coach or both, if you're coaching yourself as an individual, you need to be fluid with it. You need to be willing to not just always stick to the hard, fast rules, but also analyze what is best for you in this moment, in this body, in this mindset, in this emotional state. Like, all those things count, all those things matter. You know, how are the things that you're doing affecting your family? I mean, and that includes like working out. If you're working out 2 or 3 hours a day and you have husband and kids or wife and kids or whatever, you know, at home, you know, just taking a look at those things. I think that's just as important as all these other things that we're talking about. It's just as important as, you know, how many carbs you're eating a day or whatever. All those things are going to play a role. There are some cases where I spend, you know, a month or two helping somebody just get their hormones straightened out, get themselves in a better place mentally, you know. And you know, I have people that aren't comfortable even sending in their weights and things like that, and we just work on their mental attitude towards food and towards the gym and towards other things, you know, because they've been, you know, so driven into the ground or made to feel so shameful about what they've been doing and that kind of thing. So I think it's just really important to meet yourself where you are, and in my case, you know, to meet, you know, the people that I work with where they are and help move forward. You know, and then, you know, celebrate each step in that process. Whether it be, you know, you're in a building the metabolism or that's also when you're building your muscle phase, or in that cutting phase. I know it's really hard for me to see your questions on here, as you know, I will go back through and look at all the questions and comments that came across. Hopefully I answered a lot of things for a lot of people. If I didn't, what do you say to people that are completely against IIFYM? You know what? To each his own. You know what I mean? We don't all have to do the same thing. I think a lot of the times the reason that people are afraid of the IIFYM method is because they think that they think that they won't have enough self-control to still eat whole healthy foods, that they'll just eat garbage all the time, which has never been the case for anybody I've worked with. I mean, everybody ends up actually over time less and less caring about the treat kind of foods just because they know they can have them. It becomes less and less of a drive for them to have it. Healthy but maybe too much. I can't read this whole thing. I will respond to everybody who put messages up because it's really hard. Do you think it's enough or need more training for me? I will take a look at that. And you know, it's hard to answer specific questions about specific people just because I don't have your whole big picture. But as far as, like I said, what do I tell people that don't believe in IIFYM? You know what? Everybody's eating macros, even if they're on a cookie cutter kind of plan or diet or planned out diet that's handed to them. Hopefully that person who's handing you that plan understands macronutrients and is planning your plan based on macronutrients, and they're just making it easier on themselves just to tell you specifically what to eat, because I go through every client's every day worth of food to check it, you know, so it takes more time and effort to do it this way than it does to say, here, eat this every day. So at the end of the day, even if you're not following IIFYM, you're still following macros. You just don't necessarily know what they are, and you're not learning how to do it for yourself, and how to choose for yourself and all of that kind of thing. So, but you know what? To each his own. Whatever works for somebody, and if that's if they want to go with a more kind of cookie cutter approach, that's up to them. I could just tell them what I've told you, why I feel like this approach is the most sustainable, the most pleasurable, the most fun once you get it down. They think we have no control. Well, I mean, different people are going to think different things, you know what I mean? And you know, you still have to have control because you're still having to hit your macronutrients each day. Anyway, so sorry guys, it's so hard for me to read and talk to you guys at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I appreciate everybody for being here. If you're interested in getting a consultation with any of our amazing Fit Body Fusion coaches, you can go to fitbodyfusion.com and you can fill out an application. There's a transformation and there's also an athlete application. And all that does is it gives you an opportunity to sit on the phone, you know, for a free consultation where you can have a longer conversation, like some of the questions people ask me, specifics about them, you know, where you can have a two-way conversation and hopefully learn something about yourself, learn something about our programs, see whether or not it's a good fit for you. So please feel free to go to fitbodyfusion.com, fill out that athlete application. There's also articles on there and things like that. We've started putting all these videos on our YouTube channel. Am I saying that right? I'm so not technical. So they're there too. So I have a lot of past Facebook Lives that are up there. So, and there's other videos of our posing clinics and training clinics and fun stuff there. So if you want to go to the YouTube channel, it's pretty newly updated now with some of these videos. This one will be up there later too, and it's just everything's Fit Body Fusion. Anyway, so thank you again for everybody who signed on and listened in, and everybody that's going to listen after the fact. I really, really appreciate it. I appreciate your messages. I appreciate your comments. I feel blessed to be part of this amazing fit community, fit family, I always say, because we really are a family. We have enough things that are, holding us back from achieving our goals. It sometimes feels like everything in the world's against us. So this is a place that I feel like this fit community where our goal is to push, give people the push the other direction, to help just kind of support, to just be there for each other. Just know we all have bad days. We're not perfect. We just want to keep moving forward. We want to keep growing, creating the next best version of ourselves. That's it. That's all it's about. So thanks again. I'm going to sign off, and please keep the comments coming. I will take a look at all of them and respond to any questions that you have. So hope you're having a great Friday, and hope you have a great weekend. And I'll be back in probably 2 weeks. I'm going to try to do these on all the weekends that I don't have to go to competition. So, all right. Thanks, guys.